Was Dana White right? PFL Bellator, as he likes to say, looking at things now, it looks like he was spot fucking on. He's in the business, so of course, he's got the experience. He saw what was coming. It doesn't seem like they even know what they're doing because Don Davis himself has come out and said he doesn't even watch fights. He doesn't even watch his own brand, the PFL. When asked what's his favorite fight, he couldn't even name them. You couldn't even come up with something like on the fly. Oh, you're the CEO, CO, whatever job title he is for the PFL, and you couldn't even just come up with some fight off the top of your fucking head? I don't know. That just seems like a complete blunder over there. And they're not necessarily taking the Bellator side serious because you're having fighters come out like Patchy Mix, I think Patricio Pitbull. Or if you're not on the PFL roster, it seems, on their side of it, then you're not necessarily taken care of like you should be because they don't even have a 135 division, bantamweight. They don't have a 185 division, middleweight. These are two of the most stacked divisions in the whole sport. And you're telling me that you don't even have them? You have fighters that you just accepted from a whole nother organization and a whole nother brand. And they're some of the best fighters in the whole world. I'm saying some of the best talent on the whole roster that you just acquired. And you have still almost a whole calendar year since you've acquired them, because we're coming up on it. You have still yet to figure out how to either incorporate them in the PFL or make them have consistency on the brand of Bellator that you decided to keep because of international notoriety. That's just very much a blunder. I think what Patchy Mix had claimed that he was promised a fight and it got canceled, promised another fight, got canceled. He found out online. I really wanted the PFL and the Bellator thing to kind of work out, whether they absorbed it, which they just should have absorbed it into the PFL brand and kept it one. Because even if you go on their website, legitimately, Bellator's website, or if you go on PFL's website, they have each other's content and they have each other's logo. So how are you even supposed to understand the difference? How are you supposed to understand the difference between PFL or Bellator or their Challenger Series or their PFL Europe or their PFL Africa or their XYZ? They can't even market correctly in the USA for some reason in those with those other brands. I really don't understand it at the end of the day. If you're going to try to actually be the number 2 or the co-leader in MMA, Don Davis, you should actually maybe watch the sport or maybe hire someone that does. Dana White teamed up with the Fertitta brothers. The Fertitta brothers handled the money. They were fans, but they didn't handle the day-to-day like a Dana White. You seem to be in the Fertitta brothers role trying to play Dana White. That is honest opinion from a fan who watches your product, Bellator's product, UFC's product, and one championship's product. Okay. Now I would love to watch the KSWs, the Cage Warriors, the LFA, every single thing I can. And I try to catch whatever I can, but real life. And at the end of the day, you are running a fucking brand that's supposed to be the co-leader. And you are playing Dana White as the Fertitta brothers. Like, honestly, it doesn't make any sense to me. So I think ultimately the PFL, even with fighters that they have, right, they do have some really good talent over there. The Bellator brand, the fighters that they've signed, the fighters that they have, Dakota DeChiva, Paul Hughes, all the fighters that they have over in Bellator, like Sergio Pettis, Patchy Mix, Johnny Eblin. These are just some of the Vadim Nemkov who's fighting soon. These are some of the talent. This is some of the roster. And most of them are just going to be released or have, actually, I'll come here. I have a list of fighters who have been released. We'll talk about this now. I have a list of fighters who've been released or who have asked for their release and have maybe possibilities of going to the UFC, or I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe they could. Let me just, for instance, his contract expired. He's 31 years old. He was 8-1 in Bellator, 27-1 overall record. Yaroslav Almasov. He was the champ at 170. He lost to Jason Jackson. He was KO'd, but his contract expired, and hopefully he can go over to the UFC and have a couple of fights over there. It'd be interesting to see how he does, being 7-1, being a champ, being 27-1, being 31 in his prime. Hopefully they've been in the talks. I know he was in the UFC prior, but Lorenz Larkin was in the UFC before he was in Bellator. I think he's 9-3-1 in Bellator, and he's 27-8-2 overall. Now he is 38. I don't know whether he's going to be fighting at 170, 185. Whatever the case is, he's kind of been all over in his career. We don't even know if that's a possibility for him with the UFC and how often they're just sticking to younger talent. So him being 38, whether he's going to retire or he's going to actually be able to sign somewhere else. Now, Anatoly Tokov was released. He was a 185er. He's 34 years of age, 7-1 in Bellator, and 32-3 overall. So we'll see if he is going to be able to make a jump over to the UFC. Being at 34 years of age, you are just there at the cusp, at the end of your career. Not saying you cannot win, because over 170 weight classes, the older opponents do have more of an opportunity based on statistics. I know, people and fighters are all their individuals, and statistics do not matter for the person. I would say that would be a good opportunity. Him at 34 years of age, Anatoly Tokov, to go into the middleweight division. We'll see if he can get a new home. And then Gegard Mousasi at 39. He's a legend. He was in the UFC prior. He's going through a whole lawsuit with the PFL, apparently. He's going to be suing them. So we'll see how that goes. I do not see him getting another opportunity, but I figured why not put it in here? He did get released. I doubt he gets another opportunity, but that would be interesting to see him return to the UFC, because he does have a big name. And then Lucas Brennan, he's actually coming off a loss, and he's fighting at Fury FC 99. He was 9-1 in Bellator, and that was his overall record. So we'll see. He is 24, and he does fight at the 145 division. We'll see if that's even an opportunity for him after this Fury FC 99 fight here in December. I didn't write that down. I think it's December 14th or something like that. He did get knocked out and then released from the PFL 2 weeks later. So not necessarily fun. Those are some prospects that are possibilities to be joining the UFC. I know that there is a plethora of talent on the Bellator roster right now. Short list here: Patchy Mix, Patricio Pitbull, Johnny Eblin, Sergio Pettis, Magomed Magomedov, Rafael Stotts, Leon Edwards' brother, Fabian Edwards. Jason Jackson is a good candidate to be going over to the UFC. Now, I'm not saying that any of these guys have come out and said, oh, I want to get released. I want out of my contract with Bellator or the PFL, and I want to go to the UFC. But at the end of the day, if Bellator and PFL do not figure it out, a lot of these fighters are going to want out, and they're going to want to go and venture to see what the UFC has to offer them and check their free agency market to get the most out of their career. And they don't want to be just sitting on the shelf. So if you're in Bellator right now, or if you're in PFL, why do you want to just be sitting on the shelf, waiting out your career, waiting out a contract and not getting any fights? They're going to want out eventually. And I did hear this. The holidays are here. A lot of fighters, if they're seen on TV, they're quote unquote famous, but the paycheck doesn't actually correlate. They're going to be more pissed off that they're not even able to purchase gifts for their family or do XYZ over the holidays and go see family or whatever, because they're not fighting. They're not getting paid. The money's not coming in. It's not something that is sustainable for them. So they're not going to be happy with the organization. That really does reign true though, because if you're not able to provide doing what you love the way that they're trying to in their prime, you're going to want out. You're going to be disgruntled.